Well, thank you so very much for staying with us here on the program. The last 27 years of Nigeria's return to democracy has presented this amazing nation so many opportunities. We've seen that in the economy, we've seen it in the political landscape, we've seen it across sectors. However, we cannot also pretend that several challenges have, in this regard, also presented themselves. One of them is the question of how Nigeria, as a government, as a people, and as a democracy, can strengthen this kind of governance. 27 years into this democratic experiment, as some people call it, one of the things we've heard time and again is we must deliberately, intentionally strengthen democratic institutions. And for many experts, this sort of move needs to go far beyond just INEC. It must be even within ancillary agencies of governments as well as public institutions. In the middle of all this, what is the place of data in strengthening Nigeria's democracy? Time and again, since we returned, beginning with general election cycle in 1999, are we taking time to look at what the data says about every round of elections, whether it is the general cycle or off-grid elections? We just finished one in Osun, an off-cycle gubernatorial election a couple of days ago. As it stands today, what data are we putting out from that experience? What will it mean in 2027? I'm joined by a gentleman who has followed this trend long enough to understand the dynamics around the intersection of data and Nigeria's electoral process. Mausa Aihion is head of political strategy and governance at Visos Abuja office. I'd like to call you IK. Welcome to the program this morning.
Thank you very much, Lee. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I share that pleasure 100%. So I'd like us to start by talking about data culture in Nigeria. Of course, we know how that there's a political angle to it. So if there's data from wherever, World Bank, IMF, or say even the AFDB, saying, for example, that Nigeria is not doing well, let's say in the area of fiscal or monetary policy, government looks at that and takes it with a pinch of salt. But if the same institutions come up to her and says, look, you have done amazingly well in the same areas, government says, we told you when we came into office, we're going to do X, Y, Z. So it appears we rely on emotion to interpret data. What are you seeing? What are you hearing?
All right, thank you. That's your assertion is correct. A lot of times people rely on emotions when they're interpreting data, and in the field of data analysis, it's called a bias.
Right.
So when data hits you, you tend to interpret it through your lens. It takes a professional eye, it takes a third eye to be able to look at it from an objective standpoint. Now, just talking about how data has evolved in Nigeria as it relates to politics and elections. From 1999 to date, right? I must first of all commend INEC. INEC gets a lot of stick,
right?
But I must commend INEC.
So you're here to give them carrots?
Probably. So I must commend INEC. INEC has done quite a lot. If you look at the progression in using data and technology to manage or administer elections from 1999 to date. 1999, the voting process was purely manual. 2015, the card reader was introduced. 2020, the Nasarawa state by-election was the first time INEC used the IREF portal. And that evolved into the BVAS and what we're seeing today. So I must first of all commend INEC, right? Then on the side of civil society, there's a lot of work that has also been going on within the civil society space. At the risk of diverging or going kind of tangentially from your question, right? I must commend what civil society is doing has been very, very, very impressive. And even private institutions like us, Visos, we're 10 years in business today, and our business is purely built on managing data, using data to manage elections. Our data culture, it's still evolving.
Right. But are we in a good place overall?
I'll look at it from two perspectives. In the area of data collection, data aggregation, I think we are doing very well in Nigeria. We have loads of organizations, private and public sector, that have the capacity to do large-scale data collection and interpretation. The area where we have a lot of have to make up a lot of ground is in the area of data literacy among the non-professionals. Now, I'll give you an example. You painted a very clear picture. When data comes and says the government is doing well, the government accepts it.
Right.
And when it comes and says it's not doing well, the opposition accepts that data.
And weaponizes it.
And weaponizes it, yeah. So data is a weapon, by the way.
Right.
His life is a weapon. It's also a weapon. So I'll say from the perspective of how those in government, in politics, handle data, there has been progress, but there's still a lot of ground that needs to be made. Yeah.
It's interesting. I'm asking this because every time we have an election upon us, like there is one going to, a series of elections in 2027, we hear as XYZ number of people registered, XYZ collected their PVCs, their voter cards. In this state, you have this registered, and so on and so forth. So we can tell there's a body of data coming out of INEC, for example. But that's just one end in that conversation. The political class, does it look like data influences anything that they do before, during, and after elections?
Oh, it does. It does. We've been fortunate to work across several electoral cycles with several political actors, and it does. And there's a growing awareness of what data can do in an election. Let me just, since you've mentioned the Osun election, there's some interesting facts that I would like to state here, right?
By all means.
The last election in Osun has had the highest voter turnout in Nigeria's history for a gubernatorial election. Over 50%. Never happened before.
Right.
The best we've been getting, right, has been around 40% turnout. And that's the highest. So just to put it in context, in the 2023 presidential election, the state that had the highest voter turnout in the presidential election was Jigawa State, right? Jigawa and Adamawa are very, very close. They were the top two. And they got about 40%, right? And the average voter turnout was about about 26%, right? Osun did 50%, over 50% in this last election. I just thought to throw that out.
Right.
Now, the political class have begun to leverage data a lot. In the last election, 2023 election, there were at least 5 publicly commissioned and publicized polls about how people would likely vote in the elections. So they are using it. They are leveraging it. The challenge seems to be should I call it the lack or the shortage of understanding of how these polls are done and the methodology behind the polls. We often get the question, how can you tell me that if you interview 3,000 people
in a country of over 200 million people?
Yeah, you're able to tell how the election will likely go.
Is that what you call extrapolation?
We call it stratified random sampling.
Stratified random sampling.
And if I have a few minutes, I can just allow me.
By all means.
Yeah. So, stratified random, before I go to the technical, let me put it in a way that anybody will understand, right? Do you cook?
My wife didn't hear about this, but once in a while I do.
All right. So, if you cook, when you put salt in your soup, right? Your nice egusi soup, a big pot of egusi soup, and you put salt, do you have to drink the entire pot of soup to know if the salt is enough?
Sometimes just a pinch is enough.
Exactly. So it's the same thing, right? When you put your salt in your soup, you stir it properly and you taste to know if the salt has been properly distributed across your soup. It's the same thing. Over the years, there are several statistical methodologies that have been developed. So the stratified random sampling I referred to was, you take Nigeria as a country, 36 states plus FCT 37, 774 local governments, about 8,000 wards, right? And you then take random samples. So you randomly pick, you don't purposively pick, as you said. You randomly pick from each of these strata. So you randomly pick from, let's say you randomly pick 5 people in every ward across Nigeria, you would get a sense of what the entire nation is thinking. It is statistical. It has been proven over and over and over again. So this understanding is very clear in the academic space.
Right.
It's clear in the private sector. People that do market research, for example, if you want to launch a product, you want to do your research. But the political class is starting to understand. So the major thing there is giving people awareness on the methodology. How is it done? What are its limitations? So it's not 100% correct, by the way. But trust me, if it's done properly, when done properly rather, it gives results that are very, very close to the actual outcomes. And the politicians have understood that and they've started to leverage it.
I want us to talk about INEC because at the end of the day, when you look at the institutions that significantly drive our electoral process or midwife the process, INEC is more like the capstone agency in that regard, for want of better words. Does an entity like INEC, so to say, needs to look at data coming from private sector space or rely on its own internal mechanism altogether?
I think it would be, ideally, it should be a combination of both.
Both,
right?
okay.
Because
but is that the reality we have? I know you're trying to be careful.
Yeah. I don't want to speak on behalf of INEC, but
no. From what you see in the public space, does it look like INEC, as it were, synergizes with guys like you in the private sector to say, look, we have our own thing going for us, but we also think we can use some help leveraging the data coming from.
I think my response would be like, we would like to see more of
that, right?
Collaborations, right? I mean, I for one, I'll speak for my organization. We've done a bit of work with INEC in terms of sensitization at state levels, right? But I would say the ideal scenario would be a combination of both approaches. Now, INEC statutorily has the constitutional powers and the funding.
Of course.
Taxpayers' funding, my taxes and your taxes.
Exactly.
To, kind of manage elections. And you can't manage elections in over 176,000 polling units.
Yeah.
Without using a lot of data. So INEC has a lot of data. I've been giving INEC a lot of carrots, maybe a bit of stick this time. In 2023 election, there was this issue of the IREV stopped working and all that. I think it's in those kind of areas that INEC can collaborate with the private sector. INEC has a lot of capacity in the area of technology, but they say two good heads are always better than one.
Yes.
So we would like to see a lot more collaboration with INEC in using leveraging data for election management. But this is not. I would say that INEC has done a lot, and I'm being very honest here. INEC has done a lot. If you look at all the elections, especially from 2015 till date, INEC has been growing steadily in using data and technology. What we would like to see anyway is kind of a geometric growth because the growth seems to be arithmetic.
Maybe now is a kind of snail pace.
Yeah, it's kind of, if I give an honest opinion, it's kind of slowed down. If you look at and it's natural with technology, right? If you look at the growth between 2011 to 2015, it was astronomical. Because 2015 was the first time, like I said, we used the card reader to verify to accredit people before they vote. Then if you look at the leap between 2015 and 2023 was also very strong. Yeah. But 2023 till now, we are expecting that the next election should also show very high level of improvement. And that thing I would like to add is something that can also help INEC is the kind of laws that guard our elections.
Yeah.
Right? And the last presidential election, the last general elections rather, the Supreme Court ruled that IREV is not the collation center. So it just
So was that an obstacle for our democracy? Because Nigerians are so passionate about election in real time, results upload in real time, announcement in real time, and so on and so forth. And of course, we saw the debates that preceded, very intense and widespread, preceded the issue of the 2026 Electoral Act and all of that. We saw how protests came so close to even the National Assembly. So when you look at all of these issues, does it look like even legislators themselves, do they depend on data, or they're just looking at, I mean, they're just trying to be politically correct?
Okay, so I would say let me answer this question from a technical standpoint, right? It is near impossible to have real time.
Right.
What you can have is near real time.
Near real time.
Because real time means immediately the votes, it's automatically logs in. Because the reason why I said near real time is because of our infrastructural challenges.
Does that include internet penetration and availability?
Yeah, internet penetration and availability, power, and just the kind of the level of, because these are elections, right? The level of verification that needs to happen along the data stream. So near real time, 5-10 minutes after voting, right? Or even 3 minutes after voting.
That's fair, right?
That's very realistic. It's very, very realistic. Just like if you send a WhatsApp message, for example, and you jump on a plane, right? The moment you land, the message delivers.
Right.
That's the kind of scenario. And I believe the BVAS, I mean, I'm not an expert in BVAS machine. I don't work for INEC, but I believe the BVAS machines have the capacity to work offline.
Right.
So you can, and the reason why I'm saying this is this. If you codify it in law that it is real time, because law is not English.
Right.
Law is law. If you codify it in the law that it is real time, if it is not done in real time, it contravenes that law.
So that's an infraction in the eye of the law.
In the eye of the law, yeah. So the law will not understand that they voted at 10 o'clock and the result was uploaded at 10:05. That is no longer real time. So what needs to be codified, or what should have been codified, should have been near real time, and I believe it would have improved our democratic process. But the way it stands now, that one, the Supreme Court ruled that the IREV is not a collation center. Two, the Electoral Act does not recognize real time electronic collation of results.
Right.
It kind of slowed down that pace of leveraging and using data for elections. It kind of did, but I don't think it's a showstopper. I think there's still a lot that INEC has done and that INEC can do to leverage data and technology in managing elections.
You gave some, to use your term again, carrot to the civil society space. I mean, the guys who work in that space a while ago. We've seen them do beautiful work. In fact, sometimes we've seen some of those guys, even at the risk of their lives, risk to their lives in the face of existential threats, they still go, boots on the ground, getting their work done and things like that. But we've also seen how electoral violence has posed challenge to the work that they do. Yes, we see people like YAGA and several other NGOs, civil society organizations, even at this last election on show. Do you think third-degree issues around the electoral violence and all of these concerns that we have around the electoral process also have become some sort of impediment to the ability of civil society organizations to gather real-time data?
Absolutely. Unfortunately, and my heart goes out to the families that have lost loved ones in the last Osun elections. It's quite unfortunate that people have to die as a result of elections. No one wants to expose themselves, their staff, to danger, right? I'm looking at this studio, very beautiful, expensive equipment. You don't want to put it in a place where someone can just walk in and break it and injure and kill your staff. So it's an impediment. There's no mincing words about that. It's a huge impediment, huge impediment. But there's also a role that data can play in trying to prevent or manage violence in our elections, right? There's something that we did at Vsauce a few years back, which we call the Electoral Violence Index. It was an in-house framework that we developed in a particular state. I'm not at liberty to mention. In a particular state where we mapped the entire state and identified potential hotspots. Right. So, for example, if you use an hypothetical example, use the FCT as an example. Maybe there's an election here. We go into the field, we collect data, and we then map local governments, wards, and even polling units where we expect violence to happen. Now, there's something that a very popular minister said a few days ago. He said, "Elections are not won. You don't win elections on election day." Right.
Long before that.
You win it long before the day. Same thing with violence. When there's going to be violence in an election, you know long before the
So
election.
it's not something that happens sporadically on the day of election.
It hardly does. It takes electoral violence takes a lot of from our experiences of various field experiences, it takes a lot of coordination for it to happen. Before the violence happens, weapons are moved, men are moved around,
Their money also.
and money is also moved around. So what we tried to do at that time was we interviewed citizens across these various places, and the citizens, the best source of intelligence is the citizen intelligence,
Right.
And they tell you, this is our ward for the past 6 elections. Whenever we vote to a particular extent, somebody comes with a gun, or a group of people come with a gun, they shoot, they take the ballot away, and it happens over several elections. So that's how we created that index for the entire state, right? And before the elections, we supplied the index to the security agencies, and then they were able to mobilize to prevent,
Right.
to carry out some proactive actions to prevent the violence. So yes, back to your question, it is a huge hindrance, but there are a lot of things that you can use data to do to prevent such things from happening, or to reduce or to mitigate the risk of violence to civil society and even just the general public during elections.
We're going to hit a break soon, but I want to ask you this. I feel if I don't ask this question, this part of the conversation is not complete. What's your data so far saying about voter inducement? Whether it is sharing cash before the election, or some rebagged rice, or bringing the cash to polling units? Do you have data pointing in a certain direction here?
Yes, and the data is quite interesting. If I had known you're going to ask this specific question, I would have, because we have a team on the field right now doing very fantastic work in data collection. I'll be able to get, as at yesterday, I would be able to tell you. But yes, voter inducement is a problem, right? But it is a problem because of the level of poverty, the level of suffering in the land.
So evidently there's an economic side to it.
Definitely is an economic. I'll give you an example. In an election we monitored, right? They were at the polling units, they were sharing 25,000 naira per vote. People who typically wouldn't come out to vote were in their farms, and those that were in the polling unit called them to say they are sharing 25k here. Think of a rural community where somebody makes 10,000-15,000 naira a month from sales of their farm produce, for example, and someone comes to their polling unit to share 25,000 naira for
an exercise that you just have to carry out in maybe less than an hour.
Yeah. So the economic realities might not allow a majority of the voters to be able to think rationally, to understand that 25,000 naira is actually 4 years pay, right? It's an existential problem, but there is also a kind of awareness that's coming up now where people know, or rather people believe that money that's to be shared is their money.
Yeah.
They will collect it and still vote the way they want to vote.
Or as they say, vote their conscience.
And vote their conscience, right? That's why you hear of cases where in I don't want to mention any state so that nobody comes after me, but where people have to collect the money and have to jump over a gun, so that if they vote in opposition to the party that gave them the money, the gun will come and kill them. Yeah, it's just some superstitious stuff. But in a nutshell, I think with the level of voter awareness that's going on now, and it has been codified into the Electoral Acts, making vote buying a criminal offense. It has been codified. And with the level of awareness, I suspect that we'll have a situation where voters will collect money and still vote. Vote the way they want to vote. Yeah.
All right, let's take a quick break, everyone. When we come back, we want to stretch this conversation beyond the electoral process in Nigeria. We'll look at developments. What are the indicators saying in terms of Human Development Index, HDI, in Nigeria today? Health, education, infrastructure, life expectancy as well. Nigeria for several decades has not looked very good in that regard, but can we again rely on data to give us deeper insights on the program today? I'm sure we can, but that will be after the short break. Please do stay with us. All right, let's turn our attention now, still talking data and its relevance to development as a country. You see, when we talk about data, people talk about how that even with regards to insecurity, data will play a very vital role. But then we hear that when you turn to the Federal Road Safety Corps, FRSC, there's a body of data there. INEC has data. Who else? Of course, the CBN has data. I mean, data all over the place. And now you have the NIMC, the the National Identity Management Commission, which is more like the mother of the data repository, if you like. Have we been able to so far maximize this data blessing, as I'd like to call it?
That's a very, very good question. Have we been able to maximize it? I would say there's still we have a long way to go. And the number one problem is the existence of data silos. Right. So you have your FRSC has your driver's license with your biometrics.
Right.
Nigerian Immigration Service has your international passport with your biometrics. Your bank has your BVN with your biometrics, and the data seems to be sitting in silos. When you are able to interweave data silos, you easily improve your potential outcome by 5-10 times, right? So just imagine a situation where your driver's license, your international passport, your bank, and everything was interwoven. I know you're a law-abiding citizen, but if you beat a traffic light and FRSC holds you down, they don't even need to chase you. They can take a picture of your plate number. Automatically, they know who's the owner of this vehicle. Automatically, they know your bank account, and they can, if
all on one spot.
All on one spot. But we do not have that level of integration in Nigeria. Agencies seem to have their data just sitting in different silos, and that's the reason why we've not been able to maximize the data that we have.
So what do we attribute this problem to? Is it bureaucracy or lack of forward-thinking approach?
I think it leans more with bureaucracy,
agency supremacy, and all of that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, now we have an agency called NITA, that's the Nigerian Technology and Data Agency. We also have our data privacy laws that have been passed, and we have an agency who's responsible for managing that.
All right.
You already mentioned NIMC, which is the statutorily assigned agency for managing identity in Nigeria. These agencies are not so new. Rather, are not so old, rather.
Yeah.
They are children of necessity. If we had a situation where the framework had been built 20-25 years ago for us to be able to capture this data, then it would have been easier. There's been a lot of improvement that has been done in trying to tie up all our data points together, or rather all the different data silos together. There's been a lot of improvement, been a lot of work in that, and there's a lot of local capacity with our technology companies and the fantastic professionals we have in Nigeria who will be able to tie up these silos and leverage this data. There's a policy that has been introduced now that all our data should be, all our identity data should be hosted in country. Because as of today, your banks and the rest, the data centers that manage that information are outside Nigeria.
Europe, America, and everywhere.
Yeah. So
is that something that should bother us, should disturb us?
Yes. And the simple answer, the simple reason why I say yes is it borders on sovereignty, right? All your national data is sitting outside your country. I mean, it just means that if something happens tomorrow and the US can decide to shut down our banking system because we have a lot of our data sitting outside.
So worst case scenario, is there the potential of that? I mean, if things went south, really?
I mean, with the way things are going on in global politics, there's you can't really guess, right? It can happen. I'm not saying that it's going to happen, but there's a possibility that it can happen. And just for the sake of our national sovereignty,
right,
I think it's important, and I think it's a good step in the right direction to be able to host our data centers locally, or rather host our identity and banking data locally. And what that does for us is it saves a lot on costs. It also helps to build local capacity. So we have a lot of fantastic Nigerian professionals in technology space who are based outside Nigeria. By the time we have companies setting up data centers locally, right, it then builds the capacity of these individuals, gives them opportunities, gives them job opportunities, it gives also business opportunities to build data centers here. So, and that, I believe, is the first step in the right direction of ensuring that our entire data ecosystem in Nigeria is connected, properly connected. It is not completely disconnected, but it is not as connected as it should be.
Interesting. I also talk about what I probably should refer to for the purpose of this conversation as, if you like, data superiority. By that, I mean the source of the data. I'll give you an instance real quick. So the National Bureau of Statistics, which I understand is, at least in theory, independent, right, releases data and says, this is how we're doing regarding, let's say, a tax regime, right? All of the tax reforms introduced by the Tinubu-led government. And then IMF comes up and says, this is how we're doing in the same regard. And then there's a bit of divergence in terms of what the NBS is putting out there and what the IMF is saying. Most Nigerians, even those with minimal education, formal education, will say, I'd rather go with what IMF is saying. What does that say about our ability to build credibility around the data that we are churning out?
So I think this speaks to data literacy, understanding how to interpret data, right? Personally, I've met a lot of fantastic professionals at the NBS, people who know their stuff when it comes to data collection, data processing. And there are also a lot of local organizations that do fantastic work with data. It's all boils down to, you know, like you said, data is a weapon, right? It all boils down to the understanding of the methodology that was used to collect, analyze, and communicate the data. So data the same data can be seen as a cup is half empty or half full. Same data. So it really sits on the methodology that was used to, like I said, collect, analyze, and process. Now, if IMF comes up with data that says something about our unemployment, and NBS comes up with data that also says something else about our employment, and you ask me, oh, which one would you pick? Which one is better? I would not pick, or I would not speak which one is better based on the organization that brought it. I would interrogate the methodology that was used.
For both of them?
For both of them. And integrating the methodology, because, two truths can exist.
Side by side.
Side by side. The way we define, there's an international definition of unemployment, right? But in Nigeria, you can hardly see someone that is truly unemployed.
I'm just curious, is there also an internationally accepted definition for poverty?
Yes, it depends on how many dollars you
right.
If you're living less than, I think it used to be $1, but it has increased to $1 and some cents a day. Such person is technically defined as poor. But there are people in Nigeria who live on less than $1 a day, who, yes, they're not well off,
Right.
but they don't see themselves as poor. And poverty is another. There's multi-dimensional
Poverty, right.
and we did some research, very interesting research that we did. I think that was in 2023. We worked in collaboration with the HCD office at the Office of the Vice President. And we did some research into how the international development agencies define poverty. And one of the multidimensional poverty, and one of the, there's a whole lot, the house that you live in, what kind of floor is the house, what kind of roof is it, what's your water source.
And those elements are largely alien to us here.
Exactly. That's the point I'm trying to make. So we had people in the office that were just talking, and one of the metrics was the kind of water that you drink. So if you drink sachet water,
You're poor.
you're poor. And everybody in the office was like,
Maybe they don't realize that a bag of sachet water, with 20 sachets, in some cases, sells for as high as 500 to 600 naira.
yeah. And
people buy those bags in bunch every other week.
And even colleagues in the office were like, but I earn a decent wage. But I
Right.
also drink sachet water. Does that mean I'm poor? So the definition
It's relative.
is relative, and it must be contextualized.
Right.
And that's the reason why it is important to understand methodology
Right.
of how data was collected, analyzed, and communicated.
Very interesting. I think that's a very brilliant way to put it this morning. Data convergence, I like to call it, as it has to do with national development, especially from the standpoint of our electoral process. I've been talking with a brilliant gentleman, Ikmamusa Akinombare, is the head of political strategy and governance at Visos here in Abuja. I'd like to say a big thank you for these valuable insights you have shared this morning. On the
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Great. So that's what we're living it today. It's Friday. Make the most of your weekend. I'm Uyi Agmofwegbe on behalf of myself and my colleague Moreno Haniel. We'll send a big thank you to you for watching. Our broadcast here on Skyline News continues.